everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. This time we're going to be looking at the spread and impact of the restored gospel from the perspective of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Okay.
We're going to be unpacking some really powerful ideas from a talk that was given by Elder Alan R. Walker.
Okay.
It's called The Gospel Light of Truth and Love from the April 2021 General Conference.
Right.
And get this, we're talking about a religion that went from just 6 members to millions across the globe. It's an incredible story.
Yeah, it's really an impressive trajectory when you look at the numbers. But as you might imagine, it wasn't all smooth sailing.
I bet.
The early years were marked by surprisingly slow growth.
Really?
From 1830 to 1947.
Okay.
It actually took 117 years for the church to reach that first million members.
Wow, over a century for 1 million people. That's kind of interesting. What do you think contributed to that initial slower growth?
Well, a lot of things, but I think you have to consider the context.
Okay.
This was a brand new religion.
Right.
Emerging in a time when religious innovation wasn't exactly embraced.
No.
They faced intense persecution and social stigma, even violence.
Wow.
We think about the expulsion from Nauvoo, Illinois,
Right.
the trek west to escape persecution.
Yeah.
These were defining moments that really tested the resilience of those early members.
Oh, absolutely. It's amazing they were able to grow at all with those kinds of obstacles. But even with those difficulties, they were sending out missionaries right from the very beginning.
Oh, absolutely. Missionary work has been a core part of the church's identity since day one. First, they ventured into Native American lands.
Okay.
Then to Canada by 1837.
Wow.
And even across the Atlantic to England that very same year.
So even in those early days, they had a global vision for the church's reach.
Absolutely.
Right.
And not long after, you find missionaries in Europe, India, the Pacific Islands.
Wow.
Imagine the commitment and effort it took to spread the message in the 1800s.
Right.
With limited transportation and communication.
Yeah, what a contrast to today. This rapid expansion is remarkable. What changed to create that kind of growth?
Several factors came together at the right time.
Okay.
To create kind of the perfect storm for growth.
Okay.
Increasing religious tolerance in many parts of the world allowed for greater acceptance. Advancements in communication and transportation, like the advent of air travel, made it much easier to connect with people and spread the message across continents.
Yeah, those make sense. But Elder Walker also emphasizes the importance of temples. How do temples fit into this story of growth?
Temples are central to the Latter-day Saint faith.
Okay.
And their construction is seen as a sign of the church's growth and stability.
Okay.
They offer a place for members to participate in sacred ordinances.
And what are those?
Essentially rituals or ceremonies that mark important spiritual milestones.
Okay, so temples, communication, tolerance, it all adds up. Elder Walker also shares a very personal story to illustrate this idea of the gospel's global reach. He talks about traveling from Argentina to the Salt Lake Temple at just 2 years old. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Sure. It's a powerful story
Yeah.
that really speaks to the global nature of the church. In 1973,
Okay.
he journeyed over 6,000 miles with his family to be sealed in the Salt Lake Temple.
Wow.
At the time, there were no temples in Latin America.
Really?
So families would make these incredible pilgrimages.
6,000 miles for a 2-year-old. That's some serious dedication. He even remembers specific details from that trip.
He does.
White clouds from the plane window, amusement park characters, and the sealing room in the Salt Lake Temple. It's amazing what sticks with us, especially those moments filled with meaning.
Right. Those 3 images, so distinct, yet woven into the tapestry of that one pivotal journey, speak to the lasting impact of these sacred experiences. Even at such a young age, those memories help shape his understanding of faith and family.
It's like those memories became foundational for him. What's fascinating is that he later had the opportunity to be sealed in the Buenos Aires, Argentina temple, first with his wife and years later with their daughter.
Yep.
It seems like a beautiful full circle moment.
Absolutely. This highlights a key theme: the increasing accessibility of temples worldwide.
Yeah.
When Elder Walker was a child, there weren't any temples in Latin America.
Right.
Now they're becoming more and more common, making these significant ordinances available to people around the world.
So more temples, greater accessibility, it all points to the church's emphasis on making these sacred ordinances, as you called them, available to more people. Can you explain a bit more about these ordinances and why they hold such importance in the Latter-day Saint faith?
Well, they're viewed as essential for spiritual progression
Okay.
and are seen as covenants made between an individual and God.
Hmm. So it's not just about observing rituals, it's about actively engaging in one's faith and forging a deeper connection with God. What about this idea of the covenant path that Elder Walker mentions?
Think of it as a path of commitment and progression.
Okay.
When individuals participate in these ordinances,
Right.
they enter into sacred covenants with God, promising to live their lives in a certain way.
Mm.
These promises guide their actions and shape their understanding of their relationship with God.
That makes sense. It's about making commitments and striving to live by them. Elder Walker also talks about gathering Israel. Can you shed light on what that means in this context?
In Latter-day Saint theology, gathering Israel isn't about a physical gathering in one location.
Oh, okay.
It's about bringing people to Christ.
Okay.
Not just those living today, but those who have passed on as well.
Interesting.
Temple work is central to this idea.
You mean the ordinances performed in the temples? How does that connect to gathering Israel?
Members perform ordinances on behalf of their ancestors who didn't have the opportunity to receive them while alive.
Okay.
It's about extending those sacred connections beyond the veil, creating a chain of faith that spans generations.
That's a really interesting concept. It's like bridging the gap between the living and the dead, creating a spiritual lineage. But why is this gathering seen as so important? What's the ultimate goal?
It's all part of a larger belief preparing the world for the second coming of Jesus Christ.
Wow, so we're talking about preparations for a major world event. That's a pretty significant belief. It must impact how members view the world and live their lives.
Absolutely. The belief that they are actively preparing for the second coming shapes their actions and outlook in profound ways.
That makes sense. If you believe you are playing a role in preparing for something that monumental, it's bound to impact your choices, your priorities, and your interactions with the world.
Exactly. And that brings us to the central role of temples.
Okay.
President Nelson, the current leader of the church, called them the crowning jewel of the Restoration.
Why are they so central to this faith?
Temples are viewed as more than just buildings.
Okay.
They are literally considered houses of the Lord, places where heaven and earth meet. The ordinances performed there are seen as crucial for spiritual growth and preparing for the second coming, like we just discussed.
So they are physical manifestations of the faith's core beliefs and offer a tangible way for members to connect with the divine and prepare for the future. That explains why we see so many new temples being built these days, right?
Exactly. This surge in temple construction reflects the rapid growth we talked about earlier.
Right.
And the emphasis on making these sacred ordinances accessible to more people worldwide.
It seems like this expansion of temples is a tangible sign of the church's global reach and its commitment to providing opportunities for spiritual growth and connection to a larger community of faith.
It's a powerful symbol of the church's vision for the future and its belief in the ongoing progress of the restoration.
We've covered a lot of ground already, from the church's humble beginnings to its global expansion and this belief in preparing for the second coming. But let's delve deeper into the idea of a covenant people that Elder Walker mentions. What does that actually look like in practice?
It's a fascinating concept that goes beyond just individual beliefs.
Okay.
It's about building a community of faith bound by shared commitments and a common purpose.
Okay.
This idea of a covenant people is deeply intertwined with temple service as well.
Oh, how so?
It's not just about attending the temple for personal spiritual development,
Okay.
but also serving others there
Okay.
and performing ordinances for those who have passed on.
That's a powerful idea, connecting individual spiritual growth with a responsibility to serve others and even those who are no longer living. It creates a sense of interconnectedness across generations and speaks to the importance of family in the Latter-day Saint faith.
It's a beautiful illustration of the way this faith seeks to link past, present, and future through these rituals and acts of service.
We'll dive deeper into this idea of service and family in the next part of our deep dive. But before we go, I'm curious about something. You mentioned the church's belief in the second coming and how it shapes their worldview. But what does that actually look like in everyday life? How does a faith with such grand beliefs translate into practical actions?
That's a great question, and one that deserves a deeper exploration.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about abstract theology, it's about living out those beliefs in a tangible way.
Right.
If you believe you're part of a covenant people building toward the significant future events,
Right.
how does that shape your choices, your priorities, your interactions with the world?
It's almost like this belief system becomes a lens through which they view everything.
Exactly. And for many Latter-day Saints,
Yeah.
that translates into an emphasis on family life,
Okay.
community service, missionary work, and a conscious effort to live in accordance with their values. It's about making choices that reflect their belief in a divine plan and their commitment to preparing for what they believe is to come.
We've laid a lot of groundwork in this first part of our deep dive.
We have.
It's clear that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has a rich and complex history and a unique set of beliefs that shape the lives of its members. We'll continue to explore this fascinating faith in part 2 of our deep dive.
Sounds good.
Welcome back. We're exploring this remarkable story of faith, starting from its humble beginnings to its global presence today.
It's a journey for sure.
As we go deeper into the life and beliefs of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, one theme that keeps coming up is this idea of a covenant people working together toward a common purpose. What does that actually look like in practice?
Well, it's fascinating how this concept goes beyond just individual belief.
Right.
It's about a collective effort to build a community bound by these shared commitments and a vision of the future that they believe God has laid out for them.
So it's about more than just personal faith. It's about building a community with a shared purpose. Earlier, you mentioned how temple service is intertwined with this idea of a covenant people.
Right.
Can you unpack that a bit more for us?
Sure. It's not just about individuals going to the temple for their own spiritual development.
Right.
It's about serving others there,
Okay.
both living and deceased.
Okay.
The idea is that by performing ordinances for those who didn't have the opportunity in life, they're extending those sacred connections and creating a chain of faith across generations.
So it's a way of linking the past, present, and future through these rituals and acts of service. It's interesting how this ties back to the importance of family in the Latter-day Saint faith.
That's a great observation. Remember how Elder Walker shared those personal experiences?
Yes.
Of being sealed with his family, first with his parents, then his wife, and finally his daughter?
Yes, I do.
These events represent a strengthening of family ties, not just in this life, but for eternity, which is a central tenet of their faith.
And it seems to go beyond blood relations.
Right.
It's about creating a sense of belonging and unity,
Hmm.
as if everyone is part of this extended spiritual family.
Exactly. It's about building a sense of community that transcends earthly boundaries, bringing people together from all walks of life as part of this larger spiritual family.
Elder Walker talks about this idea of the gospel light of truth and love shining throughout the world.
Yeah.
It's as if this light is drawing people in and forging connections across generations and continents. It's an inspiring image. But how does this grand vision actually translate into everyday life?
It's about putting faith into action.
Okay.
Imagine for a moment that you genuinely believe you are part of a covenant people,
Okay.
working towards a significant event like the Second Coming.
Okay.
How would that shape your choices, your priorities, even your interactions with the world around you?
I imagine it would fundamentally change how you approach life.
That's precisely what we see in the lives of many Latter-day Saints. It manifests in a strong emphasis on family life,
Okay.
community service, missionary work,
Uh-huh.
and a conscious effort to live in accordance with their values.
So they're constantly looking ahead, both to the next life and to this belief in the second coming, and it informs how they live their lives today.
It's an interesting dynamic, this interplay between the temporal and the eternal, the individual and the collective, the here and now and the hereafter.
It's almost like they're living with one foot in this world and one foot in the next.
That's a great way to put it. It's this dual perspective that makes this faith so intriguing.
Yeah.
It compels us to question assumptions about purpose and meaning,
Right.
and to explore how faith, in its many forms, influences our lives and the world around us.
It does make you think about the potential impact if more people lived with that kind of awareness and purpose.
Elder Walker seems to be alluding to this when he talks about this gospel light spreading throughout the world.
Right.
He invites us to consider the implications of a faith actively working to create a brighter future, for individuals and humanity as a whole.
It's a powerful message for sure. It makes you curious to learn more about how this faith evolves and impacts the world.
There's always more to discover and learn about the diverse tapestry of human beliefs and experiences.
True.
It's a reminder that there's beauty in exploration and seeking understanding.
Before we move on, I want to revisit Elder Walker's personal story his journey from Argentina to the Salt Lake Temple.
Okay.
Even for those outside this faith, it's a powerful and relatable story.
I agree. It's a reminder that even within these grand narratives and theological concepts,
Yeah.
personal stories and individual journeys are at the heart of any belief system.
Right.
It connects us on a human level.
Those three vivid images from his childhood, Trip the Clouds, the amusement park characters, and the ceiling room,
Yeah.
are so powerful. They represent something far greater than just a journey.
It's remarkable how seemingly random details become imbued with meaning and woven into a larger narrative. It speaks to the power of storytelling, and how even the smallest details can become windows into something more profound.
Those seemingly insignificant details become anchors for our beliefs,
Right.
making them feel real and tangible.
Precisely, Elder Walker's story isn't just about abstract doctrine.
Right.
It's about how those beliefs shape real lives, influencing choices, relationships, and ultimately a person's understanding of the world.
It makes you wonder, what are the defining moments, those vivid images that shape our own faith journeys, regardless of our spiritual background?
That's a great question to consider. Ultimately, our beliefs are molded by our experiences, the stories we tell ourselves, and how we find meaning and connection in the grand scheme of things.
This deep dive has been a fascinating journey, moving from the church's humble origins to its global reach and ambitious vision for the future.
Right.
It's about exploring the human element within a faith that impacts millions worldwide.
It's a reminder that even in a world that often feels divided, there's something truly powerful about sharing stories, seeking understanding, and connecting with the shared human experiences that bind us all.
We've covered a lot of ground today exploring the history, beliefs, and impact of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
We have.
We'll wrap up our deep dive in the final part, where we'll consider the broader implications of this faith
Okay.
and what it might mean for the future.
Sounds good.
Wow, we're back. And I gotta say, exploring the history and beliefs of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has been quite a journey.
Yeah.
We've uncovered so much, from its humble beginnings to its global expansion, and this idea of a covenant people working toward a brighter future.
Yeah, it's been fascinating to kind of peel back the layers of this faith and delve into not just the theological concepts,
Right.
but also the personal stories that breathe life into those beliefs.
Yeah, exactly. We've seen the big picture, the sweeping historical arc, but we've also zoomed in on those individual experiences that reveal the heart and soul of this faith. What stands out to you as we reflect on everything we've explored?
Well, a couple of things. I think the balance between the individual and the collective is striking.
Okay.
Even within a global faith with millions of members, each individual's journey and contributions are valued.
Right.
It's like a mosaic. Each piece is unique. But together they create this stunning and intricate whole.
It's a beautiful analogy. It reminds me of Elder Walker's talk and his description of the gospel light of truth and love shining brightly throughout the world.
Right. That image, that metaphor really captures the essence of what we've been discussing.
Yeah.
It invites us to consider the ripple effect of faith, how individual acts of love, service, and devotion can radiate outward,
Right.
creating positive change in families, communities, and ultimately the world.
It's as if each person becomes a beacon,
Yeah.
reflecting that light and illuminating the path for others.
I love that imagery. It's a reminder that even small acts of kindness, compassion, and service can have a profound impact, because ultimately it's the collective impact of those individual choices, those everyday actions, that shapes the world around us.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I'm left with this sense of hope, this feeling that even amidst challenges and uncertainty, there's a powerful force for good at work in the world.
Yeah, I share that sentiment. It's been inspiring to explore a faith that emphasizes not only personal spiritual growth,
Right.
but also a commitment to building a better future for everyone. It underscores the power of belief to motivate action and create positive change.
Yeah, this exploration has shown that faith in all its diverse forms is about connecting to something larger than ourselves.
Absolutely.
It's about finding meaning, purpose, and inspiration to make the world a better place.
Beautifully said. Elder Walker's story and the broader narrative of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints remind us that faith is a lived experience. It's about how those beliefs translate into actions, relationships, and a commitment to making a difference.
To all our listeners out there, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep seeking those nuggets of wisdom and insight that illuminate the human experience.
And remember, even in the darkest of times, there's always light to be found. Whether it's the gospel light of truth and love that Elder Walker described,
Right.
or any other source of hope and inspiration that guides your path,
Right.
hold on to that light
Yes.
and let it guide you.
Until next time, keep diving deep.